Creative Katie here with Index Card a Day 2017. We are on card 47 and the prompt was layers. So I'm going to work on putting lots of layers into this ICAD. It's called Go With The Flow. Links to any specialized supplies in the description box. Hit the subscribe button and check the option to be notified of the next video. So I am going to do some brayering on paper, and I just chose some music paper. In the end, you really don't see much of the musical notes, but I have this old vintage paper and I thought, oh, let's see what happens. So brayering is one of the techniques that you can use to get color on a page and build lots and lots of interesting layers. I love the feel of a brayered paper. So you can see that I'm adding craft paint. This is Deco Arts Americana craft paint. And I'm just brayering it on, and I'm going horizontally and vertically, turning the paper as I go. Once I have both colors, I'm adding a little bit of white. This really gets interesting as you go. You go back to the same colors and add, and it just evolves. I will put a link in the iCards to my mixed media technique tag video on brayered backgrounds, where I go into a lot of depth on how to create brayered backgrounds. This kind of gives you a sneak peek. I thought instead of grabbing one from my stash, I was going to create, and it works so well for the prompt layers. As you can see, I'm not even sure how many layers of paint I have here. And I just alternate between whatever color, and I keep going until I like what I see as an end result. And even then, it's not the end. So once I'm happy with the brayering thing, now comes more fun. And I'm grabbing a few stencils, and this is where the 12 by 12 stencils come in handy. And I'm just applying I've got Dilutions paint here in the dark blue, but I could be using a dark blue with my Americana paints or any kind of paint, and I love using the felt applicators for to apply all of these paints. And I'm going, with blues and things that are in the same family, and white. And I'm just building interest. Now you could use one stencil, you could use a variety of stencils. Really, the sky's the limit, and your imagination is the determining factor. And depending on the layers you add and the colors you use, you're going to get a different effect. So typically, I did several brayered papers, and you're going to see one of those in an upcoming video. Because once you have all the paints out, right, you want to maximize your creating time. And I love doing this. It's so much fun. Now, alternatively, if I don't have brayered papers, I could grab colored papers that have leftover paint or jelly prints and do the same thing, adding more interest with stencils and adding more layers. So now we're adding a second stenciled layer with this Tiny Dots stencil from Crafter's Workshop. The other one was, I believe it's called Bubbles, and it was Prima Elemental stencil. But I'll put the links in the description box below. Both of these are favorite ones. A lot of times when I use multiple stencils, I like to keep a theme. Here, we're just going with circular shapes. I like that cohesiveness. So now I'm grabbing some lids from various things that I have and in my stash, and I'm just adding some white circles. Again, another layer of circles. So all told, with the paint from the brayering and these three, we must be up to, at least 6, probably maybe 8 layers of paint and interest. Really like how the mark making tools here, the lids, really adds to it. And I just have different size lids. So, before you throw things into the blue bin, check them out. Do they have mark making ability? So absolutely love the result I get here. Now this could be a background for a complete um, art journal page. So here's just some close-ups of the brayered and stenciled paper with the, 6 to 9 layers of paint. And the feeling of this when it's brayered, it's almost like turns it almost plasticky, and it's just a lovely texture. So I get my ICAD, my flashcard, and I'm just applying this with gel medium. And in there I go, I ripped the corner, but I just glued that back in and no one's the wiser. So in my stash, I had this spiral. It was from some ad, and it was just a design element that I liked. And the blue that's in here matched the dark blue of that. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to put that on. So now we're up to, let's say, layer 7. And this is how you can use color features, design features from magazines. And then when the colors match, I have the white and then the orange being a complementary color of the blue. That's why this works so well. When I started doing the ICADs, this was one of the things that I pulled out of my magazine files, thinking, okay, at some point in time, I'm going to use this because I absolutely love it. And I'm thrilled that there's probably half of it left for another project. So you can see that it's across the color wheel, complementary colors, and it gets its energy, and that's why it pops. So I spent some time going through my stash, and I did this off camera, and picking things that I have. And I decided to go with this free printable, this fish, and the saying, go with the flow. One of the upcoming prompts is swim, so I'd actually picked this saying and these printables to go with that. But you know what? I'll give you a hint. You're going to end up seeing 2 sea ones or swimming ones. So these are on paper that's a little bit thicker than copy paper. And so now I need to color it. So I'm going to go with that orange color because it pops so well. And I just used my distressed crayon. I wrote on and then activated it with a little bit of water. And I really, once it's dry, it doesn't feel waxy like the gelatos. So I really like the distressed crayons better than the gelatos. So then I grab out my Versamarker pen, and I'm just coloring in, sorry, that's part off camera, some of the scales with this. And that's where this pen comes in handy. And my idea here is to sprinkle this with gold embossing powder, so some of these scales kind of shine. And always, always, always put the embossing powder back in the container and close the lid. It makes a really big mess if you don't. So I'm holding it down with my palette knife here and using my Ranger heat tool, which really isn't an embossing tool. If you're buying and you want to do a lot of embossing, this would not be the heat tool to use. It's not really designed, Tim Holtz said himself, it's not really designed to do embossing. So you can see how well these fish look against this background. So I'm happy with the selection of orange, and now I'm just playing with the sentiments. And this font is called Beyond the Mountain, and I believe it was a free font from defont.com, and it is one of my go-to ones. It's nice and bold. So once everything is glued on, I'm just going to edge it with black acrylic paint. And I chose black here instead of the dark blue because I wanted it to kind of coincide and coexist with the black of the letters. You know, if there's black somewhere, there should be black somewhere else. If you don't have distress crayons, you can use gelatos, you can use Neocolor 2s, you could use Inktense blocks, watercolor crayons. You could even paint this with acrylics, dilutions, craft paint, what have you. I went with what was closest to me. Now I'm just using a black pen, which I discovered isn't permanent, and just outlining just to make that fish stand out a little bit more. I cut out the letters in the sentiment or the words, kind of fussy cut it around it to remove most of the white. I didn't want the white to take over the page, so that's why I got rid of it. Alternatively, I could have painted it so it was kind of muted, which is something I used to do a lot of when I first started art journaling. It's funny how you kind of go in phases of how you use your supplies. But it's good to revisit them and remember what you used to do. I chose not to use the Stabilo All Pencil here because I wanted the orange to stay very bright. And when you use the Stabilo and it kind of bleeds out, it tends to distress it, kind of make it look a little bit more grungy. And a lot of times that I like that look, but I didn't want that for this project. So if you're searching for free printables, just type in fish free printables, and then you can usually adjust the size. So I thought I was done, and then I decided that I'm going to add a little bit darker color, and I have the Shiraz color from my Inktense pencils, and I'm just making the fins a little darker. The fish was a little one tone for me. Now when I added the water here, I am activating that black pen, and it's kind of grunging up and making that a little darker, but I was able to use that to my benefit and get an effect that I liked. And there is the finished card. So we have some close-ups again of the Brayered paper, Brayered and stenciled paper with all the layers. I hope you enjoyed watching my video on layers. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.